Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 56. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora. SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. Hope everyone had a wonderful and safe and full Thanksgiving as we're on this Black Friday for some Black Friday football before we look towards Sunday. The Pittsburgh Steelers playing a really important game against the Buffalo Bills at 4:25 p.m. Pittsburgh getting some help late last night. The Bengals upsetting the Ravens. Pittsburgh still has plenty of work to do, but a clearer path, and are technically in first place in the AFC North as things stand today. So, Dave, how you doing? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I did. I'm questionable, though, the rest of the week here. I think I pulled a jejunum or something like that. Eat too much. I had to recline in that lazy boy a little bit yesterday afternoon once that second game with the Cowboys and Chiefs got underway. What a weird day of football, I guess. All the underdogs, I think, won the games yesterday there, and it was culminated, obviously, with the Bengals. I don't know. Did the Bengals win that, or did the Ravens lose that? I don't know. But
yes, I'll give you the Dave yes for that.
Yeah. Does anybody want to win the AFC North this year? And the Bengals are right back in this thing, even though, look, they with 8 losses already, they obviously can't sustain another loss. But I mean, they got another game against Baltimore in a couple of weeks from now, and they got a pretty, I guess, decent schedule overall coming up here. I think even they have to play the Buffalo Bills here, I think, pretty soon, if I'm not mistaken.
Next week.
Yeah, next week here. So then you fast forward to this game, or you look at the picture of the AFC in general right now. Does who's the lead dog in the AFC right now? Nobody thought it would be New England at this point, but they're at top everything. And then, like I said, fast forward to this game against Buffalo on Sunday, and on the heels of the Ravens losing. You don't want to talk about must-win games, but if the Steelers lose to Buffalo, and if Buffalo can't overtake New England, which it doesn't look like they will in the division, you're automatically, it feels like, giving up one potential wild card spot to the Buffalo Bills, assuming they're able to at least sneak into playoffs, and assuming the Steelers don't win the AFC North there. And a lot of football left to be played. You got Buffalo this week. You got the Ravens next week. 2 huge, crucial games for the Steelers coming up. But it does feel, at least, that both of these games are, at least where we sit right now, winnable. But it does start on Sunday. So with all that, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great, and even better to see the Bengals win. That was an early Christmas gift as we shift towards this holiday season. I have a great guest a little bit later in this show in Matt Perino, who covers the Bills for Syracuse.com. We'll talk to him, get his insight on Buffalo. But Dave, let's start with the health of both of these teams. And you're right, these next 10 days will really shape the Pittsburgh Steelers season. Pittsburgh getting some good news. The team is generally getting healthier. Aaron Rodgers practiced in full yesterday, the strongest sign yet that he is going to play and make his return after missing 1 week with that fracture in his non-throwing wrist. So those who did not practice yesterday, Ben Skowronek with the shoulder, Broderick Jones, his neck, Derek Harmon, his knee. Jones and Harmon will not play. We'll see on Skowronek, obviously not looking great. We'll see what the Friday report has in store for him and the team. Limited yesterday, Joey Porter Jr. He's been limited on Wednesday and Thursday with that hip flexor suffered in that Bears loss. Full Rodgers, Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, Isaac Seumalo, Kim Hayward, TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith getting his first full practice since injuring his pec over 2 weeks ago. So Rodgers should play. You would think Highsmith is back. Obviously Hayward's going to play with the ankle injury, but he's going to push through. Metcalf's going to go. Porter and Skowronek, really the 2 names to watch. But of course, the headline here is Rodgers expected to return.
Yeah, and we'll obviously see how much he's able to do. I know he said that he hadn't really approached the under center stuff yet, but it does at least feel like, and I know some of the national reports out there, if he doesn't have a setback of any kind, that he should be able to go. But I was pretty confident Aaron Rodgers was going to play last week, and he didn't, and he wasn't even the emergency number 3 quarterback there. So hopefully Aaron goes full today, and we'll see if he gets the questionable tag or not there. And Ben Skowronek, man, I mean, you talk about a guy not highly involved, obviously, in the passing game as a wide receiver, but we saw in this game this past week against the Bears, very impactful as far as in the blocking aspect of the running game there. And then he's obviously one of your key components on special teams as well, too. And Joey Porter Jr., I don't know which way that's going to go. Hopefully he can go full on Friday, and because they'll certainly need him in this game against the Bills there. And look, we already knew at the start of the week, Broderick Jones and Derek Harmon are not going to play in this game in the Bills. That's 2 young players that you obviously will miss this week here. Going to be interesting to see how the Steelers finagle that. Seems to be with some of the footage coming out of practice that I don't know. Andrus Peat going to get the call over Calvin Anderson there at left tackle?
It could be. We saw some of the footage that suggested Pete was working first team left tackle next to Isaac Seumalo. Now we get bits and pieces, and we don't get to see anything in team. We just see the individual skeleton work. So maybe they were rotating. Maybe they just didn't capture Anderson getting first team reps. But there's certainly a chance that Pete will get the nod there as first start at left tackle if that becomes true since the end of the 2023 season. That would leave Anderson in a swing role, the role he's held throughout the year. So if Pete does get that work, we'll see Greg Rousseau, we'll see Joey Bosa, a bunch of former first-round picks going at it.
How much maybe this plays into it here. We talked about it after Andrus Peat was signed. I mean, this guy's been primarily a left side guy, right? Did I phrase that right? Left side guy, right? But
I see what you did there.
He's predominantly obviously played on the left side, and you got a guy in Calvin Anderson who's more swing capable. How much does that play into this? In other words, having so that maybe if you don't get into a game where somebody has to switch sides or something like that, does that play into this decision, do you think?
I thought about that, and you're right. It's a lot more messy. If Anderson started at left tackle, and then say Fautanu went down, then Anderson has to move over to right tackle, and Pete comes in at left tackle, and you're shifting more pieces to fill one spot. But I think you want to play your best 5 and go in the game and play your best dudes. And if Anderson was that guy, he would be the guy. If Pete gets the start, I would imagine they would do so because they like his run blocking more. They like his size, his power, and how important it is to run the ball, especially against a Bills team that has not stopped the run throughout the season. That would be the motivation to start Andrus Peat, but we'll just have to wait and see. May not know until basically warm-ups because I don't know if we're going to get concrete reporting on that until basically Sunday.
Yeah, so definitely something to watch as we get into game time there. Who gets to start at left tackle? I imagine we'll see Spencer Anderson in his regular role of the 6 offensive linemen, and they'll probably lean heavily into that. And then obviously with Derek Harmon, it's going to be interesting to see, can Y.A. Black come in and play a larger selection of snaps and function well against and specifically really against a run against a Buffalo Bills team who could be without both their starting tackles this week, but have been able to run the ball really, really well this year.
And it starts literally and figuratively with Y.A. Black, because I assume he's going to get the nod, but I'm really interested in the collective behind of Oto Mewa, of Logan Lee, of Broderick Martin Rhodes, assuming he dresses and makes his Steelers debut. So how does that group handle the workload behind will be really important for this team. If Porter cannot play, you would assume Darius Slay gets the start. The question becomes, will Asante Samuel Jr. get elevated and make his Steelers debut in some capacity?
Yeah, that's something to watch for. And with if Skowronek can't play, is there a possibility that MVS comes up this week?
There could be, but they serve different roles. MVS is a offensive threat, a downfield speedster, not a special teamer. Skowronek's a dirty work blocker and a gunner. So if MVS does come up, I think it's kind of almost, in a sense, unrelated to Skowronek because he's not really replacing the role.
It might be just something to help the downfield passing game.
Right. It certainly could create the opportunity for MVS. I don't know if it creates the actual replacement for Skowronek, but we'll see if elevations come through by Saturday. And as you said, for the Buffalo side, some real interesting injuries to watch. Matt will talk about those a little more in depth in a second, but you have to start with those tackles. Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown have not practiced this week with concussion and shoulder injuries, respectively. And so if neither guy can go, they're going to be starting some veterans and a guy in Grable who has not played the entire season. Terrell Bernard, one of their starting linebackers, also unlikely to play. Josh Palmer, an ankle injury. We'll see if he suits up. So the Bills are really hurting in key spots.
And they've added Brandon Cooks as a wide receiver, probably going to get some playing time on the Bills offense this week. And I would guess that who's the wide receiver on the practice squad that they're probably going to call up.
Not sure who you're talking about.
The veteran, Gabe Davis.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Old friend, one-time almost Steeler, three-time visitor, Gabe Davis.
Yeah,
right.
they'll probably elevate him, I would think.
Yeah.
On Saturday. So there's something to look out for there.
And then Dalton Kincaid, really big key to their offensive performance. And really, as he goes, so does the offense. Without him, they have struggled. He was limited yesterday with a hamstring injury. I think early in the week, Sean McDermott said there was a chance he could return, but it really might be pushing it to get him out there. And if he does play, you wonder how many snaps he'll actually be able to log. But that may be, in addition to Dawkins and Brown, the name to watch on the final Friday injury report.
And the Bills obviously won't have Ed Oliver back up this week, and that's a key loss that they've been dealing with on our defensive side of football.
Yeah, he was red hot to start the year, went down, and will not play in this game. All right, Dave, let's go to the coordinators. Terrell Austin, Arthur Smith speaking yesterday, and let's start with Arthur Smith. Nothing big there was talked about, a topic that you've discussed in depth, chapter and verse, about the lack of big plays and needing more chunk plays, and Smith tried to not defend it, but just kind of punted on the answer and said there's a lot of ways to get big plays and wasn't as focused on the vertical passing game to do that, but I think it's pretty obvious. While, yes, Pittsburgh has utilized Yak and had some of those big plays on catch short, run long situations, there has to be more of that downfield passing game for Pittsburgh to be a more complete and balanced offense.
Yeah, he goes on to say, I think the easiest way to score is to get chunks. And how do you get it? You go back to Ireland. It wasn't a long developing route. It was an 80-yard touchdown. Whether the ball went in the air 15 yards or 50 yards, you still got some chunk you're looking for. Just different ways to get chunk yards. It's obviously easier to score when you get chunks and how you get them. And he went on to say there was times we tried to rip them open. There's a lot that goes on and why they don't happen, but you got to keep working every offense, blah, blah, blah. Look, don't, as I like to say, don't tell me about the labor pain, show me the baby. And this team really has been reliant on the yards after the catch aspect of it. And specifically, even though they had 116 yards after the catch in this game against the Bears this past Sunday and all, it was only what were we calling that? True? Forget what.
Yeah, meaningful yak was the phrase that I used.
Meaningful yak was only like 85 or 88 yards. So, look, and we'll talk about to Matt a little bit more and get into this a little bit more in depth about previewing them. They've got to run the ball this week. They've got to get some of these 10-yard explosive runs. This is a Bills defense that, even though they haven't been great against the run, they're not giving up a large chunk of those 10-plus yard runs, and they've been fairly decent against 20-yard pass plays as well too. But they are banged up defense, overall. And look, both these teams are dealing with injuries at key spots that are going to impact this game this week. But I didn't get a lot of confidence that much is going to change when it comes to explosive plays from the Steelers if they can't get them after the catch, specifically against the Bills on Sunday.
I'm doing the marketing for you, Dave Bryan. I was thinking more about the name for this meaningful yak. Can it be actual yak? And so we can call it a yak? Because I think these advanced stats love putting the letter A in front of things. And so I think a yak is a good good marketing buzzword for it.
Yeah, look, I do think that we're going to be looking heavily, either good or bad, for the Steelers coming out of this game when it comes to yak and actual yak here. We've seen time and look, Kenneth Gainwell has over 200 yards in yards from scrimmage these last two games, and they've obviously been leaning into him a little bit more in the passing game. But someone, as quick as you put something out on Twitter, someone always comes back to you and say, yeah, but 50 something of those yards came on that trick tush push, if you will. Look, I'll take them anyway. I'm not in the mood to kind of cherry pick how they're getting these yards and explosive plays. However, you got to get them. You got to get them. I'm not going to crucify them for, but they got it this way.
Yeah, those are good things. You want 40, 50-yard runs. Give me one of those a week.
Yeah, and that's the root of this. They're going to have to get creative to create these chunks. There's just no two ways about it, especially when you look at we don't expect. Look, I mean, they took 6 shots down the field with Mason Rudolph last week. They only completed one of them. Aaron Rodgers, I don't even think on average is taking that many shots down the field. And obviously with this wrist injury, you're probably not going to want him, assuming he plays, you're not going to want to have him spending a lot of time taking hits in the pocket as well too. So I really think, like I said, I don't have a lot of optimism when it comes to them creating explosive plays this week, and especially against this Bills defense, even though it's a bit banged up overall there. But they're going to have Arthur Smith's going to have to get in his bag, and we're going to have to see these eligibles with the Steelers, get the yards after the catch. I think in this game for the Steelers to win.
Right. And Arthur Smith also talking about the run game that's really kind of come alive for Pittsburgh and looking to carry that against a Bills defense that has struggled against the run continually throughout the season. It's probably one reason why they're okay against the pass, because teams are running on them at will, but the pass defense has certainly been a lot stronger in Buffalo than their run defense. And then Smith also, just to kind of reiterate the point, not disclosing who will replace Broderick Jones, says he does not want to give Sean McDermott and the Bills a heads up and a head start on that. So I think they kind of know who's going to be the guy, if it's Pete or if it's Calvin Anderson. They just don't want to tell anyone. And because it's not exactly headline news, they don't get pressed too much on who is going to start.
And look, if you don't have Ben Skowronek for this game, that impacts some of the blocking that you can use in the running game. They're going to have to lean into whoever starting. It's starting to feel more like Pete, although we've been surprised in the past when we thought things would go one way and didn't go the other way. It does feel like you're going to get Pete for a lot of reasons that you said. Just feels like the better run blocker overall. And then, we saw this team with Spencer Anderson, the kind of creative things that they did with him. You have a film room up on the site the last couple of days that really details the creativity with him. I like that. I like seeing that. That's the type of stuff that you need to see when it comes to putting different things in your offense, just in creative ways. So I expect to see a lot of Spencer Anderson eligible in this game, and they're going to have to figure out a way to run on what's been a very porous Buffalo Bills run defense this season. I'm going right at Larry Ogunjobi, man. I'm going right up the gut. And you've seen opposing offenses be able to run it all, the inside zone, the gap schemes, the pulling, and stuff like that. So I expect a lot of Spencer Anderson in this game, and they're going to have success on the ground in this game.
A lot of jumbo. Darnell Washington, Spencer Anderson, especially against the 4-3 front when you're facing some of those bigger defensive ends like Joey Bosa and Rousseau and others. You want your big guys to combat that. So I'm with you 100%. You always see a lot of jumbo, but you're going to see it probably even more in this game. From Terrell Austin, a lot of commentary that you've made, Dave, about that the book is out on how to combat the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The threat is the pass rush, mitigate the pass rush, and you've solved 90% of the battle, it feels like. So the ball's getting out really quickly. We saw that with Caleb Williams last week. Austin talked about that and said, analytically, teams get the ball out faster versus us than they do a lot of other people, end quote. And so he recognizes the issue. The question is, how do you combat that? And I don't think he has a great answer how to do that.
Here's the thing. We go into every week. Yeah, you got great pass rushers with the Steelers, and especially it sounds like you're going to get Alex Highsmith back, and his win rate's been good, and we know how impactful TJ Watt can be, and we know Herbig can get after the quarterback as well too. But we go into every week saying especially these quarterbacks that haven't been getting the ball out in snap to throw times, they turn around against the Steelers. The book's out on. They don't want the Steelers be able to marry their rush and coverage together. They want to take away the rush aspect of it by getting the ball out. And now you face a Buffalo Bills offense with a banged up quarterback in Josh Allen. You're going to have a lot of different or new receivers or just guys that he had worked with overall. You got Keon Coleman over there that they're trying to get on track somehow, some way, other than just a deep ball aspect of his game. So you look at what's a perfect elixir for the Buffalo Bills, and especially if they don't have both their tackles, and even if they do have one of them, they're going to be. How right is let's say they have their left tackle in this game. He sounds like he's not 100% from the concussion and all like that. So the elixir to all that is get the ball out quickly, and I would imagine that's going to be one of the Buffalo Bills, other than them leaning on their run game, which has been very impressive this year. It's near tops of the league in that. But even so, even all the problems that the Buffalo Bills have had on offense, they've still yards per play. They were up there overall in yards per any play. They've been up there, but where they have struggled is the negative play, I think, aspect with Josh Allen throwing these interceptions. We saw the Texans be able to get after Josh Allen and put him on the ground, and just a pressure component as well. But if the Steelers can't get pressure on Josh Allen, whether it be via blitz or him holding on to the football, then it's going to come up to what the Steelers can do in coverage. And so far, what we've seen at times throughout this year, it was highlighted, like we said, against the Bears, and Caleb missed some throws, but the throws that Caleb Williams did make in that game were impactful throws. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that Josh Allen's not going to miss some of the ones that Caleb Williams missed in this game this past Sunday. So they better figure out how to have the coverage component in the defense for the Steelers if they don't have the rush component on a regular basis, because once again, I expect Josh Allen to get rid of that ball quick.
And Pittsburgh may not have Joey Porter Jr. in that coverage component, depending on how that hip injury works its way through the rest of the week. Usually the answer for Pittsburgh is, how do we make teams hold on to the football? How do we really unlock and unleash our pass rushes? Stop the run, put teams in third and long. That's the playbook Pittsburgh has, but that has not been as effective this year as past years. Look at the Chicago game last week. The Bears didn't have a great ground game. It was pretty ineffective, especially what they're usually able to do. They run the ball well all year, and yet Caleb Williams carved them up, and like you said, could have had a whole lot more, left plenty on the table. The Packers game, they had no run game at all. Josh Jacobs completely taken away and bottled up, and yet Jordan Love torched them as well. And so teams in a modern NFL, they're not just running on first down. They're using the quick game, the run game extensions on early downs to, combat teams who can stop the run. So even when Pittsburgh has played well against the run, which has been inconsistent throughout the season, they've had some poor showings against the run. Certainly, they have not always been able to pin ears back and make teams hold on to the football and take advantage of that run defense. So I think Pittsburgh is struggling because their answer of stop the run, earn the right to rush the passer has not worked as well this year.
We're going to have to see the Steelers defense play a lot better in this game, and specifically probably if they can get them in some of these third and longer type situations. The problem with that is Josh Allen over the years has shown that he can overcome that. Now, he doesn't have the receiving crew, and maybe that will play into that. Maybe he'll not be on the right page a couple of times with some of these wide receivers, and maybe get some incompletions and get off the field. But yeah, you hit on a good point there. Even the Bears were able to convert a high percentage of third downs in that game, even with Caleb Williams missing some throws and them facing some third and longish type situations. But it does start with stopping the run, and I would imagine the Bills are going to lean on that heavy. If the Steelers cannot stop that running game, it could make for a long day once again.
So what are the answers to try to combat this? It's difficult, obviously. I think it's twofold. A, can you get some more rerouting and coverage? James Harrison talked about this week. Can you play a little more physical and throw off the timing of these routes that make the quarterback hold onto the ball longer? And then B, and Pittsburgh has done this well, is get your hands up in throwing lanes. Bat down passes, tip passes, take away the quick game, read the quarterback, which Cam Hayward's been elite at, TJ Watt's been elite at. Collectively, they've been very good. They did not do that against Chicago last week, and so that's got to happen against Allen this week.
And then, I know he's banged up and all. And boy, when he went down with that injury against the Texans, I thought it was serious, man, the way he was.
He was in big pain.
Yeah, and obviously came back right away there, and it took several more hits in that game as well, too. But the component with Josh Allen, obviously, too, if you play a lot of man coverage in this thing and you have your back to him, this is one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's a load to bring down. And I don't think that elbow is going to prevent him from taking off with the football if it's not there, especially if he feels that he's not on the same page with some of his wide receivers. He knows he's got to get out of the pocket if he holds on to that football long and doesn't get it out quick against the Steelers defense. So you got the whole component of Josh Allen. This is a Josh Allen that could slap up 60 yards rushing, and look, you get in short yardage situations with him. It's almost a guaranteed he's going to get the first down in any kind of quarterback sneaks type situation. So you got to stop the run. You got to stop Josh Allen when he gets out of the pocket, at least make him throw the football when he tries to extend plays there. And then the other aspect too, you better stay out of third and short and fourth and short situations, because I almost guarantee you they're going to be near 100% conversion rate if they get in third and fourth short type situations.
Think back to the playoff game where Allen ran all over Pittsburgh, 74 yards, a touchdown, had that one big run over the middle that really just kind of ran through multiple Steelers. So that's going to be the threat there. 10 rushing touchdowns this season for Josh Allen. Austin was also talked about when he would get a question about this after Mike Tomlin virally declined to give any sort of color to the DJ Moore 25-yard touchdown where they're running 4 vert. Chicago did, and Pittsburgh's in spot drop cover 3, and Terrell Austin asked about that and basically said, yeah, sometimes you get beat. He says, quote, every defense you call, every coverage you call has some weak points, some places that can be exploited, and I just thought the Bears did a good job of catching us and getting some things on us, end quote. So he said, yep, we got beat. And that was kind of all there was from Terrell Austin on that answer.
Yeah, but you still let a quarterback in Caleb Williams still exploit the middle of the field more than 10 yards down the field against you in other situations as well, too. So it'd be okay if that was just a one-off situation. But once again, as we talked about reviewing the film against the Bears there, they pretty much had their way in the middle of the field, down the field, the daggers, the skinny post type situation there, and thank goodness Caleb didn't miss a few of those throws there, because it could have been even worse. So it's okay if we were just talking about that one play there, but that was just one play on top of several others that they were giving up down the field and between the numbers.
Yeah, the bang eights that they talked about. You don't hear the bang eight too often. That's usually old Aikman to Irvin kind of play, but Williams was hitting that. And you made the point before, remember whenever Pittsburgh was getting beat on those Yankee concepts early this year, teams are going to test you the next week. Have you solved your problems? I bet you're going to see Buffalo run 4 verts and see if Pittsburgh can respond and play it more appropriately this time around. So you're always tested to see if those mistakes have been cleaned up.
And what can they do in the third, in key situations? Don't. You can't, if you try to play prevent or beyond the sticks in a guy like Josh Allen, he'll easily, he's been around long enough. He'll easily take, and look, they run a lot of mesh and all like that type concepts. They run mesh rail. You'll see more of that this week as well, too. He's fine at taking a profit up underneath.
Right. Yeah, we'll get to the Bills here in a second, kind of go through how to defend Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I think that was basically it from Terrell Austin. He talked about a little bit on the response of Patrick Queen, seemingly to be a little unhappy about the schematics and frustrated by some of the calls to put them in tough spots. And Austin said he appreciates the feedback. It's good to talk things out. So the bottom line is, obviously, we're joking a little bit with and have a little bit of fun with Austin's comments because what can you say? But the bottom line is, you got to fix it. If you fix it and you play good defense against the Buffalo offense, it's certainly potent at its best. Then all those questions get answered. And even if you gave the greatest response at a press conference, if you don't solve the problems on Sundays, none of it matters. It's all hot air. So we always know that the main thing is the main thing, which is actually fixing it, showing that Pittsburgh has done that this year. The Bengals game a good example of that, but more tests ahead.
Look, and Josh Allen aside, he's a great quarterback, and you got to take that into the equation here. But this is a big game for both teams here. You got potentially Buffalo Bills offense that's going to be without their two starting tackles. We'll see what happens with Josh Palmer at wide receiver. They're going to have Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis on the field quite a bit. You better be careful with Keon Coleman. He's got a lot to prove right now, and he's a dangerous guy, especially down the field there. But I mean, this sets up at least from a personnel injury and standpoint and experience of guys working with each other, that this is one hell of a week to get things right with your rushing coverage on a defensive side of football, and they are going to be tested in the coverage aspect of it. So you better tackle as well too. If you let some of these speedy guys, Shakir, we hardly even talk about Shakir so far in this thing too. That's a very, very dangerous guy on the offensive side of the football for them. So Austin better come up with a good game plan, and they better execute it on a defensive side of football. They better not be giving up 10, 20-yard chunks in this game, because that, along with their running game, makes for a long day.
Just to stray from this topic for a brief second, we talked about this in our very lengthy pre-production meeting that we always have, you and I, Dave.
Yeah, I think it was 7 minutes this morning.
A whole 7 minutes. Pittsburgh and Baltimore, Pittsburgh especially, actually both teams, are basically fourth seed or bust. And if you look at the playoff odds, which I know are ever shifting, and this week will determine a lot, this one website, which I'm not familiar with, but I trust the numbers to be true, essentially says Pittsburgh has no better than a 2% chance to be a wild card seed 5, 6, or 7. And so the Ravens are the same thing, 1%, 5, 6, and 7. And so this thing really has become narrow for how their paths to the playoffs, what that path is. It's 4 seed or bust, because you're not getting the top 3 seeds. Those are going to be determined by other teams that are just much better records in a wild card position. I don't know all the math behind it. It seems to be pretty unlikely at this point. So it's basically Pittsburgh and Baltimore fighting for just that one spot.
Yeah, and this game specifically, if you're looking at the wild card aspect of it, once again, do you expect Buffalo to catch New England at this point? I don't.
It's very unlikely.
All right, so if you lose to Buffalo straight up, you're already losing the tiebreaker with head-to-head matchup tiebreaker with them. So that means that you have to finish with a better record than them to get a wild card spot over them. It feels like there's a good chance that 2 teams out of the AFC South might be in the playoffs, with the Colts probably winning the division, and either Jacksonville or Houston potentially getting in there. So and if the Steelers can't win the division, and look at right now, 9-8 very well could win the division for all we know, because Cincinnati has to play Baltimore still again. Cincinnati's got some winnable games. Baltimore's got a tough schedule, that includes obviously 2 games against the Steelers. But man, you want to talk about getting closer to a must-win game and the impact a loss could have on the Steelers on Sunday to the Bills. I mean, we could be looking back and having that game circled as saying, well, hey, if they beat the Bills, they'd be in the playoffs right now. So this is a big game. It's a big game for Buffalo as well, too, especially, and look, we didn't even talk about Kansas City. Are you ready to discount? Is Kansas City not going to make the playoffs at 6-6? I mean, I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes, as bad as things have been over there with them.
Yeah, that path is getting a lot more narrow, though, but you don't want to count them out until they're officially out. So I know this is not a divisional game, and that my comment about fourth seed or bust probably puts greater importance on next week, week 14, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, the first of two meetings, as a even greater game. Even though obviously it's going to be a really important game, but you don't have to be a big brain crunch the numbers to know how important that game's going to be. But just kind of highlighting the path for Pittsburgh and Baltimore really is just one spot.
I mean, essentially, if you lose this game to Buffalo, you better win out, right? And then you're probably going to need some help.
I don't think you're winning. You got to beat the Ravens. You got to get ahead of the Ravens, which means probably sweeping them. If you can do that, you can still withstand a loss to Buffalo and something else that trips you up along the way.
Right.
If Pittsburgh does lose this game to Buffalo, the Ravens will technically be ahead in the AFC North based on common games, everyone's favorite tiebreaker common games. So just one little side note there, but it sets up that Week 14 showdown. All right, get you back on track with Buffalo here, Dave, with Matt Perino, who covers the Bills for Syracuse.com. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Perino, Parrino. Also, he is the host of the Shout podcast. And so we'll take a pause and come back with Matt.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is Week 13 of the NFL. It is Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Buffalo Bills at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. Two teams battling for what looks like potential wild card spots down the road. And with it being Friday, we always have, or at least try to have, a beat writer who covers the opposing team in on the podcast to preview the upcoming game. And with it being the Buffalo Bills this week, we have an old friend. It's been a little while since we've had him on the show, but excited to have him back. We are talking about Matt Perino, and Matt covers the Buffalo Bills for Syracuse.com. He's also the host of the Shout podcast, a Buffalo football podcast. You should be able to find that anywhere that you download your favorite podcast and where you're listening to this podcast at. You can follow Matt on X/Twitter at Matt Perino. That's Parrino. And he's fresh off of a trip down to South Florida to see Mickey Mouse as well, too, with the family. So with that, we're excited to have him in the day after Thanksgiving. Matt, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. This is one of my favorite ones to do. So every time the Steelers get on the schedule, I'm pretty pumped to talk about it because two fan bases that obviously love their team. So it's going to be a fun week. And honestly, when the schedule came out, you never know what these games are going to mean late in the season. And we get here, and this is about as big a game as these two teams could play with maybe their seasons on the line here this Sunday.
Yeah, Alex and I were just talking about that before we got on with you as well, too. You've got obviously New England leading that division. That's going to be tough for the for the Bills to potentially catch them, and nobody wants to win the AFC North. It doesn't seem over on this on this side as well, too. So yeah, if the Bills win this game, they would obviously lead the head-and-head against the Steelers there, and they it would at least help them when it comes to battling the Steelers for a potential playoff spot. So this is a big game for both teams. Matt, let's start with the Buffalo Bills. And this is a team, I'm sorry, also looking back at my preseason predictions. I had the Bills winning the Super Bowl over the Green Bay Packers this year. And here they are, battling for a playoff spot. Give us kind of your 30,000 foot overview of the Bills to date. And there's been a lot of talk about the play on offense of Josh Allen and all, so just kind of touch on those two things. That they've obviously had some injuries on both sides of the football there, but what's your recap of the Bills up until this point, and your recap on the play of Josh Allen?
Yeah, so I think that from 30,000 feet, they spent so many resources this offseason in trying to find some answers on defense. And, we're getting to the late parts of the season and we're having the same conversations, coming off of 3 straight games where the pass rush has been pretty invisible. They've taken some obviously, big hits on their, from an injury perspective. Ed Oliver going out. He's only played 2.5 games this season. They went out and signed Michael Hoyt in free agency, and the 2 games that he did play looked to completely change what they were on defense. So you take those 2 pieces out from up front and then add in Joey Bosa, dealing with a wrist injury over the last 3 weeks, and you can understand why they're where they're at, but they continue to make all of these moves on defense, trying to spin the wheel a little bit to give a head coach that has a defensive background answers to create the kind of defense that you want to pair with an all-time quarterback like Josh Allen. And it feels like they're coming up empty in that search year after year. So there's that piece of it. And then because of the offseason approach, they really ignored the offense in many ways. I mean, they did a couple extensions in Khalil Shakir and James Cook. The James Cook saga kind of went on all summer before Brandon Beane kind of finally realized that, hey, we probably should get this done. He's the number one playmaker on this offense. They did get a pretty team-friendly deal from a running back perspective, and they have a really good offensive line, but they ignored wide receiver. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was a big national story in around draft time where Brandon Beane went on a local radio show, the Bills general manager, and basically laid into the two hosts for squawking about the Bills ignoring wide receiver. And you get to this stage of the season, and the Bills are going out and trying everything they could before the deadline to trade for Jalen Waddle in division with the Dolphins, who basically spurned them, and they were offering a first and a third. And you kind of think about, them adding Brandon Cooks this week is a last-ditch effort to fix things in that room, and you wonder if maybe those two guys that brought it up around draft time, maybe we're onto something. And I know it's, Brandon Beane always talks about, like, I'm not playing Madden. This isn't fantasy football. But you do have to add weapons for your quarterback in this day and age. And I know it's not going right for the Chiefs right now. They're sitting there at 6-6, but look at that room. I mean, they've gone out of their way to add weapons for Patrick Mahomes, and he goes out on national TV yesterday, and I know the defense didn't play well. He threw for 4 touchdowns. That offense was looking like it's primed for a playoff run, and just the Bills' offense has just been up and down week to week, and this has kind of got to be where it starts, where they get things right over the next couple.
Yeah, and you look, if it makes you feel any better, we've been squawking about an extra number 2 wide receiver over here for a couple of years now, and obviously the Steelers sent away George Pickens and got DK Metcalf, but they still struggle for another playmaker over here. All that said, though, you look just offensively, and raw statistics don't tell the whole story, but this is still a Bills team that's been able to run the football very well. And they've still been on a yards per pass play, been at the top of the league as well too. And if you just look on average yards per play, they're fine. They a lot of people probably wouldn't be a surprise. They lead the league in 20-yard explosive pass plays, and they're up there in 10+ yard runs. Where's the disconnect really been within the static noise of those stats when it comes to this offense?
I think it's there's a couple things going on here. I think number one, when they've changed so hardcore into this running identity that they've become, because they have such a good offensive line. Aaron Kromer's the offensive line coach, and really has helped bring what he did in LA with Todd Gurley all those years ago to Buffalo, and what they do with James Cook. They're, to your point, a great running team. But when it doesn't go well in a game, I almost feel like there's not another pitcher to go to in the arsenal for Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, because when the Bills have been in situations where teams know they're going to pass, it's felt so hard for them. Like, there doesn't seem to be enough creativity to scheme guys open, to get the ball in people's hands. Like yesterday, I know the Chiefs didn't play well, but I think it's a great game for Joe Brady to sit down and watch. I mean, I thought Dak Prescott had so many options at his disposal. Of course, it makes things easier. You mentioned George Pickens a minute ago. I mean, the guy's playing like the best receiver in football. He goes for a 3 and a 5 last year, and you wonder if the Bills maybe shouldn't have been in on that and wanted to maybe up the price tag, because he's going to get paid this offseason. It helps to have those guys, and CeeDee Lamb, that's obvious. But, you look at some of the great offenses around the league, and I look at it the Rams do it as good as anybody, getting the tight ends involved, getting the ball in their hands in a bunch of different ways, from the screen game to the delayed off-structure stuff that we saw from Dak last night. The Bills have Dawson Knox. They went and they drafted Jackson Hawes, and then they drafted Dalton Kincaid in the first round years ago. He struggles to stay on the field, but you have to find a way to get those guys involved in the game. It feels like it's so hard to dial up game plans and get these guys the kind of touches that they need, all while having a wide receiver group that's been underwhelming. So I think it's just been an inability to marry the two identities together, to be creative with the way that you deploy things. When they run the ball and it's early and it's often, they're hard to beat. If their defense is playing well and the game stays close, they're hard to beat. But I feel like when teams have gone up on them, you could take the Miami game a month ago where it just felt like that offense came out ready to play. The Bills got down. They weren't able to run the ball really, and then they had to pass it. That's the recipe for disaster for them.
They really have missed, with Dalton Kincaid. Interested to see if they're able to get him back. I know he did not practice on Wednesday. He was limited on Thursday. Hamstring. Is he going to make it back this week? And then obviously you can't look at the Bills injury report with questioning what's going to happen with the two starting tackles in Dion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. Terrell Bernard, I don't think it doesn't feel like he's going to make it back. It seemed like a pretty significant elbow injury the other day. Their talk guy, and I know that we're recording this Friday morning. The injury report be out later this afternoon. Give us a look into your crystal ball and tell us what you think about which way this injury report goes for the Bills. Who's going to be in and who's going to be out?
Yeah, so I think that you're pretty spot on with everything there. Let's start with Dalton Kincaid because, I mean, you mentioned it. This offense operates differently when he's not available. He went out against the Falcons when the Bills just suffered their first loss or the second loss after the Patriots game, and it just didn't look right. Like Joe Brady couldn't get guys going in the passing game. He is coming back from the hamstring injury, and I don't know, it's a must-win game. So I could see the Bills wanting to get him back because of how important he is. But to have a setback and to potentially not have him down the stretch for any reason, I mean, he's dealt with injuries since they drafted him. I mean, it feels like he's on the injury report every couple of weeks. So limited on Thursday is a good sign. We'll see where he is today. But if you ask me today whether or not he's going to play, I would probably say no. Josh Palmer goes from limited to did not practice on Thursday. And that's another one where they're bringing Brandon Cooks in, which I think they have high hopes for him, of course, but to maybe have to throw him out there, you release Elijah Moore to bring him in. Curtis Samuel is a DNP all of this week, and then the whole Keon Coleman situation is also super interesting. This wide receiver room is going to look potentially very different on Sunday against the Steelers, and you compound everything with an offensive line that, the interior of that offensive line, McGovern, Edwards, and Osiris Torrance, they've played pretty much every game together for the last 3 seasons. Then you take into account that Dion Dawkins has only missed, I think, 1 game in the last 4, and Spencer Brown has probably missed a little bit more. They're going to probably be without Brown and Dion Dawkins. We'll see where he's at today. The concussion is a troubling development because he got he suffered it, I think, in the first quarter. He went in the medical tent. He got checked out, and they allowed him to come back in the game. And guys, he didn't look right, like the entire game. There was one clip that went around on social media where Josh Allen was sacked, where Dion Dawkins started his blocking technique, and about a second into the rep, he literally just stopped. And you start to wonder, like, that's a pretty serious kind of thing for a guy that goes through the whistle, super physical. I wonder if that might be a multiple week concussion sit down situation. Then you're looking at a second-year offensive lineman tackle in Tylen Grable, 6th-round pick last year. He hasn't played since August. He suffered a concussion in training camp, and they put him on injured reserve, and he's just been sitting there for the entire season. They haven't ramped him back up. So his first NFL action in his second year, and he didn't play much as a rookie, could be against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and company. I don't like that situation for Josh Allen in this offense. Ryan Vandermark's a seasoned backup. He'll end up going in there, but not an ideal situation. I mentioned compounding things. Guys, this is a team that was absolutely skewered for Joe Brady's inability to chip against Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter a couple weeks ago. Now they're going to have to go the complete opposite end of the spectrum and have chip help available at every turn. This could be a really low-scoring, grinded-out kind of game because I know that things haven't gone very well for the Steelers' offense at times as well. It's a concerning injury report, and oh, by the way, that Josh Allen right elbow injury, he's full, and Josh Allen and Sean McDermott have downplayed it. That's a serious thing to consider too, that he's dealing with something, and he potentially is going to get hit a lot this weekend.
Matt, you touched on Keon Coleman. Can you dig into that situation? He either missed a meeting or was late to a meeting, was sat down 2 weeks ago, then the short week. They said they didn't want to have him back up. I assume he's going to come back this week. What is the trust in Coleman? What will his role be? Is he going to be full go? What's kind of the future of Keon Coleman?
Yeah, I think they're going to need him back, and I think everybody involved has said the right things. He's obviously a young player, so when I talk about the situation, I like to put that in. When you get drafted as a 21-year-old, just turned 21, the NFL world and lifestyle, it's an eye-opening situation, and I think that he is in a good spot to work through these things because being late to meetings, knowing that you have to be where you need to be. I get it to a degree. I mean, he's the age of a college senior, and he's having some of the hiccups that you'd probably expect for a young player. But he's got to figure it out. But they need him. His skill set is complicated. They drafted him to be a boundary X receiver, and I think anybody that you talk to in the league would say he's probably better suited for the Chris Godwin kind of big slot role where the Bills have just not deployed him in that area. I wouldn't be surprised if they reimagine his role starting this week if he's up to play, and you just might be in a situation where you're down so many players that you need to put him in and you need him to play. He said all the right things. Josh Allen said this week that he hasn't lost trust in him. But I do think this is a critical, stretch here for Keon Coleman down the end of the season. Can he get back? Can he be responsible? Can he be somebody that goes out and makes some plays on the field? Because aside from the off the field development stuff, this is a guy that's just been too inconsistent. Like he's had some moments in games, a couple in his rookie year, and then the opener against Baltimore where he goes for 120 and a touchdown, where you think, okay, this is the breakout season starting for Keon Coleman, and he basically disappears after that. So they're going to need him to be effective this week. They're going to need him to be a part of things if Kincaid can't go, if Palmer can't go. A lot of moving parts, and Allen and Keon Coleman have spent quite a bit of time over the last 2 or 3 weeks while he's been kind of paying his penance for some of these off the field issues, throwing together after practice, spending extra time on task. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see him part of the game plan, up and active for this game, and them trying to put him in a position to finally make some plays and get involved in things.
Yeah, they're going to need him, like you said. What is your take on Joe Brady? The national media has teased him as a potential future head coaching candidate. I don't think Bills fans have that same warm and fuzzy feeling about Joe Brady. You referenced the bad plan against Houston where Allen gets sacked 8 times in that last game. Is he missing the boat? Is it because of the injuries that have hamstrung him? What is kind of fact from fiction when it comes to Joe Brady?
It's a great question. Like, I think part of it is, first of all, like his approval rating is low right now within the fan base because, obviously you just mentioned what happened last week, but it's been this inconsistent and inability to adjust in game. Like, I will say that for the defense, which has struggled and is without a bunch of its key pieces, they do find a way to adjust most of the time. Like Davis Mills looked like prime Tom Brady in the second quarter last week, and I think they had 50 total yards in the second half. You just haven't seen that consistently enough from the Bills. Now they're averaging 28 points per game. You mentioned all the stats at the beginning of the show, but they have Josh Allen, and I think part of the problem for any offensive coordinator that comes in here is, you get a lot of credit when you're able to do some of this stuff, but it comes with the caveat that you have Josh Allen, and it's kind of ready-made for you to have success. He's such a freak with how he can deliver off structure more than anything else. Like, he is so good once he gets outside the pocket, whether it be throwing or deciding to run. That's a cheat code for a lot of offensive coordinators. And I go back to, I think Joe Brady has to decide the identity that he wants to have as an offensive coordinator. There's so much of what is happening here that is derived from other people. You have the fact that Josh Allen's your quarterback, and it almost feels like he's a giddy little like kid when he talks about having Josh Allen, like he's so thankful and everything that's good that comes from this thing is it comes from having this great quarterback. Well, you're the offensive coordinator, man. Say some things with your chest a little bit. It's got to be about you too at times, like scheming things open and getting things going. Aaron Cromer, I mentioned him earlier. He, I think, was really important to Sean McVay early in his tenure in LA with figuring out the running game and everything like that. But McVay owned the passing game and the passing concepts. And you think that that's where Joe Brady's sweet spot would be, going back to his days at LSU, being the guy that really called the shots in the passing game with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all of those, Justin Jefferson, the weapons that they had there. And you just don't get that sense at times that there's a creativity that's happening here. And I know it's so sexy to go out and hire the next big offensive play caller, but I don't know if he's necessarily delivered in what you'd want. Like, it's not a Ben Johnson type situation where he took a Jared Goff and revitalized his career and everything like that. Like, everything that happens in his passing game to me is based on Josh Allen's greatness. And so I think this is a big stretch for Joe Brady. I think he's going to get a job if he wants it at the college level or the NFL level. But if you were, like I mentioned, if you were to poll Bills fans, I think that he'd be lower on their list than some of the other candidates.
Every time, and you look at Josh Allen's snap to throw time, it's obviously long out there. But every time the Steelers go against one of these quarterbacks, especially look last week with Caleb Williams there, he got the ball out very, very quick. The Steelers see this week in and week out because of their pass rush and great pass rushers on the edge. There, you're seeing these quarterbacks that usually have quick or long snap to throw times come out and get the ball out ultra quick. Obviously, with the dinged up tackles and Josh Allen, banged up with that elbow and kind of reimagining these wide receivers with Brandon Cooks and stuff. That's got to be the plan for them this week, right? To get the ball out quick from Josh Allen. I imagine we'll see a lot of this mesh route combinations. I know they like to run some of that mesh rail, probably use the backs a little bit more in the passing game on top. But that's got to be what the offensive plan is built around the run game, which once again, their run game has been pretty fantastic overall. I mean, do you see that as what the Bills are going to try to do on offense this week? Get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands quick?
I mean, they're built on that mesh concept, so I don't think it's going to disappear at all. But he's been getting a lot of heat for how much he spams it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go back. Like, Josh Allen provided a nugget on Wednesday when he said sometimes when things don't go well, you got to go back to training camp and go through all the notes and the film and figure out, all right, what were some of the plays that we were really good at when we were like installing everything, and maybe we bring out a wrinkle and go back to something that we haven't done maybe as much recently. And sometimes I think that's the other critical thing that Joe Brady's been really beat up for is he tends to find something that he likes and just lean into it over and over again and almost just say to a defense, we're better than you. We're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and we're just better, so we're going to win. And I think against a defense like the Steelers, with the kind of playmakers they have at all three levels, that's a dangerous recipe. It's going to be a physical game. You're already down a bunch of players. I think like getting into the run game, like finding different ways to be able to run the ball, whether that be, one thing I think they can go back to is the sixth offensive lineman. They ran that a ton last year. They led the league in jumbo personnel package. They've gone away from that this year because they drafted Jackson Hawes. They've leaned into this 13 personnel with the extra tight end, which I think opens up the passing game a little bit out of that set. But they were so good running the ball out of that set last year. Now that you have Brandon Cooks, I wouldn't be surprised, or maybe even Keon Coleman, throwing out a receiver, going jumbo package and looking to get creative with how you operate it out of that package. So that could be something to look for this week to see if Joe Brady maybe goes back to the well there.
Switching over defensively, Greg Russo's getting a good job with pressures. I think the complaint about him, he just needs to finish a little bit more there. Obviously, you don't have the big defensive tackle in the middle and Ed Oliver there, but Terrell But Bernard, how big a loss could that potentially be for this defense? Matt Milano's not the same Matt Milano at this point, as you mentioned earlier. Joey Bosa's playing through that wrist. It seems to be impacting him. Larry Ogunjobi's back from his suspension, picking up some snaps. He's a guy that you probably want to run at. This defense hasn't been great against the run overall. They've been okay against the pass, I think. But I mean, what's the state of this defense right now? And the Steelers better have success running against them, right?
You would think so. Everybody has. It's like take your turn every week, just beating up on this Bills run defense. And I think the thing that'll help them, as crazy as this sounds, I know he's the captain. They just extended him. Terrell Bernard's not had a great season. And when he's been off the field, a healthy Shaq Thompson, the veteran that came over from the Carolina Panthers, obviously Sean McDermott had him early in his career there at Carolina before he became a head coach. He's been absolutely outstanding when he's been on the field. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's played for a couple of stretches of games, but he's in line to probably be the Mike linebacker this week, which I think helps them in their run defense. Deion Walker has been a savior on the interior, the 4th-round draft pick out of Kentucky. He's been really good against the run. And I think, A.J. Epinesa is healthy. Rousseau's really a good run defender. I think that they're going to really try to sell out, especially early in this game, to get physical and try to force the Steelers to want to throw it. Obviously, DK Metcalf trending in a better direction helps them in their passing game, but Christian Benford has looked great over the last month after a slow start to the season, looking like the player that he was a year ago that I thought was a borderline all-pro. They have the rookie Maxwell Hairston, the first-round pick on the outside as well, splitting time with Tre'Davious White. And the biggest story on this defense this season, guys, Cole Bishop is becoming a stud at safety. I mean, he had a season last year that was so wonky. He went out in training camp, missed all of the preseason. By the time he got back, he just didn't have enough time on task. They couldn't put him out there. He didn't play until late November and was kind of just like trying to keep his head above water. Didn't play pretty well in the AFC title game because of injury. Came back this year, same exact thing happened. He missed a big chunk of training camp, got back for the second preseason game, looked real brutal playing with Taylor Rapp for the first month of the season. Rapp goes out, and I'd say over the last 6 games, Cole Bishop has given them the best safety play they've seen since probably all-pro Jordan Poyer's season in 2022. Taking the ball away, getting in the box, being physical, no missed tackles, like just a complete 180 from what we saw from him early in the season. And they're going to need that in a game like this where you're going to have to hit some of these big tight ends that they have. You're going to be able to have to deal with Jaylen Warren and company in the run game. Cole Bishop's definitely a name to watch, but Milano played better last week. It still wasn't great, but I think with Milano and Shaq Thompson, they at least have a better chance. The other thing with Bernard is he's been playing hurt anyway with this ankle. It's kind of come up over the course of the season, and now you add the elbow in there, so he's just banged up. It's better for maybe to put him on IR and shut him down for a little while and see what you can't get done with Shaq Thompson.
Matt, how is old friend Larry Ogunjobi doing? I know he got suspended for the first 6 games of the season, right after basically signing with the Bills, getting some rotational looks now. What's his role? What's his impact?
So at first, pretty much nothing. I thought last week was the best you've seen out of him as a pass rusher. And the Bills bringing him in, I mean, he was basically plan 3 for reimagining this interior rush. If you go back to his time in Cincinnati, not so much in Pittsburgh, he was a real big-time pass rusher out of the 4-3 defense on the inside. And I think they thought, hey, if he's like just a wave that we could throw at Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, and funny, both of those guys on the outside looking in at this point in the season, that to them was going to be worth $10 million. They went out and they drafted TJ Sanders. He's been a little bit underwhelming. That was going to be the first plan, was to get some interior rush in the draft. And Hoyt, like I mentioned earlier, was the big piece. He came into the league as a defensive tackle. He's played at edge. He's played some linebacker. The Rams moved him around as kind of like a joker type role, and he was just devastating in the 2 games that he played with the Bills early. And now he's gone, and it puts a little bit more of the onus, the more traditional looks that you'll see out of a guy like Larry Ogunjobi. And I thought last week, especially in the second half, he was landing a little bit and looking the most comfortable he's looked all season. And they're going to need him to be that, because depending on when Oliver can get back, it looks like he's trending towards being able to return at some point this season. He's probably not going to be 100%. So they're going to need Larry Ogunjobi to be a big part of what they do on the interior. It's going to be a lot to ask of a 30-plus-year-old defensive tackle, but I think at least the line is very smallly like trending up right now for him. It needs to kind of continue that way.
My last question for you, Matt, then I'll let Dave finish things out. Just what are expectations for the Bills? I know every year you come in hoping this is the year to get over the hump to win a Super Bowl. Is that still the hope, the belief, or have the injuries and inconsistent play at Buffalo muted those hopes and expectations?
They've dulled the hopes for sure. I don't know. There's still a pretty good portion of the fan base that has hope that this could be a year where they make a non-traditional run. I mean, if you get to the playoffs and you somehow manage to get a spot and the Chiefs are not in it, the one team that you
Right.
haven't been able to get over the hump, it almost feels like that would be what you need. Is anybody scared of going on the road to play the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix? I don't think so. Is anybody afraid to go on the road and play against Daniel Jones, who honestly looks pretty banged up right now anyway? But even if not, in December and January, I don't think anybody's super worried about that. The complexion of the AFC is such that it feels more wide open than it's ever been. And the Bills play well under Sean McDermott over the course of his career when they're doubted. And I think there's never been more doubt about this team than there is right now. And it starts this week. I think a big time performance on the road in Pittsburgh this week could revitalize the fan base, but also, I mean, we're right before the Texans game. The Bills, I think, were the second highest betting odds to win the Super Bowl still, even with where things were at behind the Patriots. That's another team. I like Drake May a lot. Like, I think he's the real deal. But you haven't done anything until you've done it in December. And
Right.
his left tackle's out for the foreseeable future. The Bills are going to get a crack at him with him out of the lineup. He's going to get banged up over the course of the next couple of weeks, and he's going to be playing some teams that are playing for their playoff lives. And we saw last night what that can look like. Nobody would have predicted that Lamar Jackson was going to be in the state of hell that he was in against that Cincinnati Bengals defense without Trey Hendrickson. So
Yep.
anything's possible. But it comes down to right now. I think the winner of this game this weekend between the Steelers and the Bills puts themselves in a great position to go on kind of like a mini run here and be in a really good spot to get into the playoffs.
Matt, we'd love to have you on for another 30 minutes here, but we know you got work to do, press conferences and injury reports and all. What's your, how about a prediction for the game Sunday, score prediction if you have one, and tell the folks what's going on this weekend ahead of the game at Syracuse.com and on the Shout podcast.
Yeah, I don't got a score prediction just quite yet. I'm kind of holding out. I want to hear about these tackles and everything like that.
Sure.
But I am going to skew towards the Bills after thinking about this the last couple of days. And the biggest reason I don't think this is a good situation to go against Watt and company without those tackles. But the Bills do tend to come out on fire when they have extra time to prepare. And I know that the Steelers have had that same, they've had success against the Bills. I know they haven't won a lot of games, but they've been super close. But I think Josh Allen is going to be able to throw a couple of different wrinkles. I do think they'll be able to get back to running the ball, and I think they'll take the ball away a little bit in this game. Getting Shaq Thompson, like I mentioned, back in that middle linebacker role, rejuvenated, refreshed for this stretch run. So I think it's going to be a one-score game. I think it's going to be super close, but I'm going to skew towards the Bills. We'll see how it goes.
All right, what's going on at Syracuse.com to look for?
Yeah, I've been off, so it's going to look pretty barren. We'll be back on the horse today. We'll have a bunch of coverage from One Bills Drive up at the site. You can check out the Shout podcast. We'll have a big, bulky preview episode later today, diving into the Steelers team a little bit. So if you want a view from the other side a little bit deeper, check that out. And you can find all my work just by finding me on X or Threads at Matt Perino.
All right, Matt, look, we appreciate holiday season. You taking time out on this Friday after Thanksgiving to spend time with us. Great as usual. I don't know if we'll do this again in the playoffs or not, but if we do, we'll gladly have you back on the show again. So with that, Matt, we appreciate you coming on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex today.
Thanks for having me, guys. If I don't talk to you, have a great holiday season, and I want to wish a great holiday season to all your listeners.
All right, you as well.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Our special thanks to Matt Perino. Again, covers the Bills beat writer for Syracuse.com, host of the Shout podcast, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Perino, Parrino. Really appreciate his time, especially right off the trip to Disney. So little touring plans tie in there, and he's a busy guy, and so really appreciate him carving out time back in Buffalo.
Yeah, and Alex and I talked about this real quickly after we got off the Zoom call with him and all like that. Matt's probably one of the most underrated beat writers in the NFL. Does a great job. We've had him on the podcast before. It's been a little while. Forgot how good he is, and like you noted there, he just got back off of a trip down to Orlando with the family. There, this is his first day back. To work with the Bills, who are on the long week. That's another element of this thing as well too. Over the next 2 weeks, the Bills are coming off of a long week, and boy, did they need that after all those times that and the loss to the Texans a week ago Thursday there, and then they'll face the Ravens after that, who obviously played on Thursday night. Will have a long week as well too. So the Steelers, this kind of scheduling quirk, and I think there's another game or two maybe later on in the season where the Steelers are going to have to play teams coming off of longer rest periods there on 10 days rest. So, not only is it, tough down the stretch here, but you get teams that have a little bit longer time to prepare for you. But Matt Perino, make sure to follow him on Twitter/X at Matt Perino. We know Margie will reach out and thank him for his time. We appreciate that, Margie. You're great at doing that, and I know several others have been kind of taking up that chore as well too, and we appreciate that. Let these beat writers know you appreciate hearing them on the Terrible Podcast here, and it's at Matt Perino if you're looking for him.
The only negative about the Ravens losing last night was you're going to get a real pissed off Ravens team when they play Pittsburgh in Week 14. They'll have extra time to stew on that. That's the only downside to the Ravens getting beat down like that last night.
What kind of injuries are we watching with him too? They had the cornerback go down, and somebody else I think got dinged up.
Yeah, so linebacker that went down, but it's not one of their starters, I don't think. But he's probably going to be out. Yeah, Nate Wiggins left end of the first half with a foot injury. Harbaugh said does not appear to be long term, but did not know if he would miss any time, and so that'll be certainly a game to watch for next week. But let's watch this game day: Pittsburgh and Buffalo, 4:25 p.m. Week 13, Acrisure Stadium, Buffalo, 7-4, second place in the AFC East. Pittsburgh, 6-5, and trying to hold on to that first place spot in the AFC North. Talked a lot about Josh Allen and the Bills. Let's kind of start with the offense, Dave. Obviously, it starts with Josh Allen, but it does not end there. James Cook is having a really strong season, 1,000-yard year. Their run game's running strong, and I imagine they're going to lean on that heavily in this game.
Absolutely they are, and why wouldn't they? They're averaging 147.2 yards per game on the ground, first in the NFL entering this week. On top of it there, they're averaging almost 5 yards per rushing play, has them ranked third in the NFL there. They have Josh Allen at quarterback. Their passing yards per play is 7.75, and for all the troubles that they've had this year, that they're ranked third in the NFL in that. Now, the biggest aspect, obviously, with Josh Allen's the amount of sacks and kind of negativity and interceptions that have come along with that. I thought Matt made a good point that I really didn't think about too much. And look, we'll see if they get Dalton Kincaid for this game. That's going to be a huge plus for them. But I think one of the most notable things that he had to say was we could potentially see them, especially if they don't have their two regular tackles for this game too. This could be a jumbo package Lapuza or Palooza, if you will, because I would imagine, and why wouldn't you try to lean into that for a lot of the reasons that they said, or that Matt said there. I think that's a good idea for a run offense that's already been strong anyway. If you don't have your top two tackles, why not put an extra offensive lineman on the field? That obviously would prevent you from having to put an extra, kind of unfamiliar new name, even though Gabe Davis isn't kind of new to Buffalo, but he's new being back there. And Brandon Cooks, they're going to try to get him on the field. You obviously have Keon Coleman that you can lean into putting him on the field as a big body, as a run blocker there. But I think that's something to look for in this game, is them going more heavy in this game and really leaning into their ground game a lot more. And the Steelers won't have Derek Harmon up front. What happens when the few plays that Cameron Hayward comes off the field for? It's going to be interesting to see who is active. You talked about Otomewo, but I kind of got my questions on him against the run specifically there. Will Dominic Martin Rhodes end up being in uniform to help out? I don't want to. Is Logan Lee going to be active and getting some snaps in this game as well too? So you really do have to wonder about up front for the Steelers on defense if they can shut down this running game, because if they don't, and Josh Allen obviously is a component of that rush game as well too, but the way he can take off with the football and the design, even though I don't think we'll see a lot of design runs with him, just a scrambling ability of him alone. So it does, it does start with stopping the run, and they have been a very good running team. And James Cook is one of those guys that can easily pile up the 10, 20-yard runs on you.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the perception at large about Buffalo is they're this really high-octane, potent offense that can throw the ball all over the yard. And at their best, they've shown that, but they're a lot more physical, run-minded, smash-mouth team than I think they get credit for. They use a fullback probably as much as almost anybody in the NFL. Maybe the 49ers use it more with Juszczyk, but Reggie Gilliam gets about 15 snaps a game. They're in the strong eye, they're pulling, they're running dart scheme, and they do something that a lot of NFL teams don't do. It's formation and boundary, FIB. They will set the strength of the formation into the short side of the field. Now, that matters a little bit less in the NFL because the hashes are more narrow than, say, the college game, but still, most teams will set the strength to the field side, the open side. Buffalo, will do the opposite and kind of really play a big physical brand of football, make you decide you're going to defend numbers or you're going to defend grass. And so that kind of puts defenses in conflict naturally. They have 39 runs at 10-plus yards. That's fourth in the NFL. Like I said, Cook, one of two rushers with over 1,000 yards entering the week. He's got 6 games of 100-plus yards, ran for 216 against Carolina earlier this year. And so, obviously Allen gets all the attention, and rightfully so, but this is a ground control kind of physical game, and Pittsburgh will have to match that.
Yeah, and look, when you look at their passing game overall, they haven't been leaning in as heavily to play action as you probably think that they would, especially with as good as the ground game has been this year. I'll tell you this, though, they're not too far behind the Steelers when it comes to actual yak as well, too. The Steelers are sitting at third in the NFL in actual yards after the catch with 1,633. The Chiefs and the Lions are the two teams that have more yards after the catch than they do. Now, the Bills, I think, are sixth in the NFL with a little over or close to 1,450 yards after the catch. So a lot of what they've been able to generate on offense through the passing game has come yards after the catch, almost just like the Steelers have as well, too. When you look at their average separation per next-gen stats, average separation per target, they are third in the NFL at 3.7 yards of average separation, and only the Bears and, believe it or not, the Raiders have a higher number when it comes to average yards per separation per target there. So, yeah, we'll talk about the run game in here, and I think one of the most interesting aspects is, look, Brandon Cooks is a guy that can get open, right? If there's one thing about old man Brandon Cooks is he can get open and he can still run after the catch. So you've got the vertical element that you still have to concern yourself with him. We all know what Gabe Davis did to the Steelers a couple of games as well too. Don't think that they're going to. And I know you got a different safety in there, but might they lean? You talked a little bit about that Yankee type concept and all. I do think that we'll see that within this game. See how the Steelers handle it. We all talking a lot about the four verts coming out of that game against the Bears as well too. So in the times that Josh Allen does hold the football, I imagine they'll max protect for him. Probably see some sort of two-man route combination, and they'll try to push the football down the field that way as well too. And we saw the Steelers' issues with trying to cover the dagger type stuff and the middle of the field bang eights and all. I imagine we're going to see that as well too. So yeah, it does start obviously with stop and run, because if they get in manageable situations like the 2nd and 4, the 2nd and 3 type situations there, that opens up the entire playbook for them. And when you have a good quarterback like Josh Allen, and you give him kind of free reign of plays that you can run in those type of situations, that's what really scares you the most. You've got to get this offense in 3rd and long situations. You got to, if you can't win early in pass rush situations and get him out extended plays, that's when you're going to have to plaster in this, because we've all seen Josh Allen do those Josh Allen things over the years here. So even though they probably are not, they've obviously leaned heavy into the running game, and their passing game hasn't been as crisp, they can still throw the football.
Imagine you're going to see those tight ends staying in chips. Even if Kincaid does get back, he may be doing a lot of that, which will mute him in terms of his route running and pass game, progressions, because A, the tackles are down, and B, they didn't chip last week and they took a lot of heat for it. Allen was sacked 8 times, and you just know that can't happen again facing Pittsburgh's rush. One concept you will for sure see in this game on both sides is that mesh sit rail combination that is almost a running joke. It seems like in Buffalo how often Joe Brady, the OC over there, runs that. That's a mesh concept. So 2 shallow crosses, the Y, the tight end sets the mesh, the receiver runs underneath it. That's a man beater, a sit route behind 10 yards deep over the ball route to beat zone, and then the running back out on a rail or a wheel route. And so they run that all the time. Arthur Smith has been running it a ton the last 2 weeks too. And so who runs it more, who runs it better? That might be the story of this game, and that mesh sit rail or maestro. Sometimes it gets called, verbiage varies obviously, but that's how I've also heard it referred to as. But yeah, I think the physical component of this game, Pittsburgh without Derek Carman, is going to be really important. And then take the football away. Obvious as it is, the Bills have not done a great job securing the football. They have 15 turnovers this year. They've turned the ball over exactly 3 times in each of the last 3 games. Josh Allen has not been good on the road this year. He's got 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a much higher sack rate on the road compared to home. So his home road splits are very pronounced. That works in Pittsburgh's favor, this game being in Acrisure this week. So take the football away, always a must. And certainly the opportunity is there because Buffalo is not held onto the football well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, they haven't leaned into getting the ball to their running backs out of the backfield. I think another thing that you could potentially see them is maybe try to test the Steelers in screen coverage. Try to get take the onus off of those offensive linemen and let them get downfield and try to block in the screen game. I think James Cook has 24 receptions so far this season, and he's 4th on the team in actual catches right now as well too. So I would look for them to kind of maybe lean a little more heavier into the screen game than maybe they have in the past.
Last week I talked about and posed a question to blitz or not to blitz Caleb Williams, and by and large Pittsburgh did not blitz Caleb Williams, and they didn't have a lot of success with that plan. I know in past games Pittsburgh has backed off pressure on Josh Allen. I think the 2022 opener they did not blitz. I think Pittsburgh brings a lot of heat in this game. I don't see Pittsburgh going back-to-back weeks not blitzing. It's not in their nature. Last week, just the 1 sack, the 1 quarterback hit on Caleb Williams, a big one, the Watt sack fumble for a touchdown, but still the pressure was not there. I think Pittsburgh's going to bring a lot of heat on Josh Allen this weekend, especially because the Bills have struggled with stunt pickup. They struggle with blitzers. Allen's been sacked at a really high clip, 8 sacks against Houston. I think Pittsburgh brings it this week.
Yeah, and I think they should as well too. They got to try to heat him up, and if anything, see how in tune he is with some of these wide receivers, maybe not named Shakur as well too. I think he has been. What is he against the blitz? 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions against the blitz so far this season here. He's got a completion percentage of 64.6 against the blitz, and he's been sacked 10 times against the blitz so far. He's 40 pressures against him. The pressure rate for Josh Allen against the blitz this year is, according to Next Gen Stats, where is it here? Believe it or not, just 35.4%. But look, I mean, he's going to see it coming. I know if you don't disguise it well, but I think the Texans showed, if anything, on this game a week ago Thursday night, is you got to heat Josh Allen up. You got to heat him up. You got to force him to do some of these plays out of structure. Hopefully you can kind of contain him in the process and get some hits on him, because you're going to have to sack him 4, 5, 6 times in this game, I think, for the Steelers to win this one.
Yeah, and he's made some mistakes. You go back to the Bucs game 2 weeks ago, and they sent a linebacker free, scot-free, completely blown protection, and Allen in the end zone panics, does this kind of 2-hand shovel pass. It gets picked off, and Bucs have the ball at the 10-yard line. And so Allen, I don't know for sure if it's going to work. I'm just telling you what I think the plan will be. What the results will be up to the football gods and the individuals on the field. But I think just given the fact that Pittsburgh did not blitz last week, the Bills struggles against, handling pressure and stunts. The Bills don't have those dudes in the pass game, especially if Kincaid does not play or is severely limited in this one if he does suit up. I think just tells you Pittsburgh is going to send a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and well, once again, I think we're going to be on Monday morning talking about, man, do you believe that? Do you believe the snap to throw time? Because they obviously, and they get in these passing situations on pass plays, they're going to try to get the ball out from Josh Allen. That's what we see every week against Steelers defense overall. So if that's the case, then you damn sure better tackle the catch, because we just talked about how they're doing yards after the catch. You really. That's going to be a component of this game. If Josh Allen gets the ball out quick, more, and well under 3, if we're talking about 2.5, 2.6 area there, where's that ball going, and are you able to tackle the catch and save some grass?
Last note, since you mentioned screen game, just watch when they go empty. You see the running back have some weird alignments, kind of this wing off the ball alignment where they'll throw some screens that way, kind of this quad look. So they'll do some funky things with the backs on those empty looks. So just be on the lookout for some of the combinations to come off of those formations and groupings.
All right. And they'll obviously take once again, I would expect a lot of 2-man route combinations on some situations with some max protection in front when they try to take their shots.
For the Bills defense, in very simplistic terms, the pass defense has been excellent. The run defense has been bad. And so that's kind of been the story of the Bills' season defensively. Yeah,
you absolutely have to be able to run the football on this defense. And man, I'm running at Larry Ogunjobi or whoever's in there in that place on that side there. They have not been great against the run at all this year, and that's been the bugaboo. Teams have been able to stay on schedule against them. I think that's kind of impacted their third down defense on top of it there. You definitely don't want to get in third and long situations, though, against this defense. Bosa over there is dealing with that wrist I make sure I hit on that a couple of times and try to impact that. It's really impacted his ability to get pressure as a quarterback. I think Rousseau's doing a good job on the other side. We saw Rousseau give Fautanu some issues during the preseason, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think back to that game. Was it the half that he played? But that just feels like so long ago, and Fautani's played so much football since. I don't know how relevant that is compared to his first game of his NFL career.
Right. But, I mean, this is an accomplished pass rusher. The problem, I think, with him is he just hasn't been finishing a lot of those. I think that's been probably the main complaint when it comes to Rousseau. But you've got to run on this front. And once again, as we talked earlier in the show, you're going to see, I think, a lot of jumbo package in here. I love the wrinkle of Spencer Anderson in there at fullback and moving him around. And obviously Darnell Washington at the end of the line of scrimmage. You got to lean in heavily on that, especially trying to protect a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers and kind of limit the amount of dropbacks potentially that he'll have in this game. You got to play ahead of the chains on early downs with this run. If the Steelers cannot run the football on early downs against this Bills defense and you get in second and third and long situations, all bets are off when it comes to this Steelers offense overall. We got to see heavy dose of yak in this one as well too, because once again, I don't have optimism against specifically against this Bills defense that you're going to be able to push the football down the field in the air against them.
Just to give some color to the Bills' run defense and their problems, they're allowing about 150 yards per game on the ground. They've allowed 100-plus yards in 9 of 11 contests this season, 87-plus in all 11 games. They're allowing 5.3 yards per attempt. That's 31st in the NFL. Only team worse are the Giants at 5.9, which is historically bad, the second worst in recorded NFL history. The Bills are allowing 17 rushing touchdowns this year, allowed 48 runs of 10-plus yards. No Ed Oliver, the injury to Bernard. You kind of see why the run defense is struggling so much. So what run scheme is best? I think inside zone could work well. I think power has some potential. The Bills play it similar to the Bears, where they'll try to wrong arm and slant and scrape. And so the end men will go inside the puller and wrong arm him, and they'll have somebody, a linebacker, scrape over the top. Thought Pittsburgh did a good job logging those end men that were kind of slanting down last week and getting the edge. Will Pittsburgh do that again? We'll see, but however you scheme it up, I think Pittsburgh certainly must have success on the ground and should have success. Now, when they go with Spencer Anderson, which they will, Buffalo sometimes will come out really heavy too in a 4-4 formation. So, it's something they don't do a lot of, but we'll do it against the 6 offensive linemen. So I want to kind of see that game within the game when Pittsburgh does go jumbo.
They have allowed just 30 pass plays of 20 yards or more on the season in 11 games. So that's fewer than 3 a game, right? When it comes to that, and the Steelers offense has registered 25. They're obviously down in the bottom of the league when it comes to passing plays of 20 yards or longer at 25 overall. So can you somehow get better than their average? Can the Steelers somehow manufacture, let's say, 4 plays of 20 yards or longer, and can one of those end up 75 or 80 yards down the field there? It feels like the Steelers are going to have that component. Arthur Smith's going to have to get in his bag a little bit to try to see how, because look, they're going to try to take DK Metcalf away in a pass game, right? Can they lean on a couple of slants maybe and get DK out in space? Can they get maybe Calvin Austin running out in space? They obviously going to have to try to use their running backs with Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren in the passing game, and try to get those guys maybe singled up on some of those linebackers or out in space that way. That's going to be a key component to this. We're going to have to see the running backs catch and run in this game to have some success.
Yeah, the Bills play a mix of coverages, get a lot of quarters down there, red zone, goal line, a lot of match coverage, box calls down there. But in open grass on third down, they play a lot of man coverage, a lot of cover one robber, one lurk. And so I think they're pretty responsive to motion. So I think pre-snap motion will be key. Pittsburgh had a much higher motion rate with Rudolph last week than they've had under Aaron Rodgers. Was that just a game plan thing? Was that what the quarterback likes thing? We'll see. But I think Pittsburgh needs to keep using motion in this game to help uncover some of the Bills' coverages. But yeah, they play a lot of man coverage. So I think Pittsburgh needs to take advantage of that with, winning their routes, obviously, but putting defenders in conflict. That'll be key. And going against some young guys in the secondary. Is Hairston playing in this one? I don't know. He's been kind of in and out. I think he's going to suit up in this game. But if not, then you have, Bishop, the safety, who, as Matt said, is playing some really good ball for them lately. And so that's a guy to watch out for in the middle of the field. Pittsburgh avoid that airspace. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the Bills defense, it's a variety of coverage. It's not a ton of blitzes. They'll stunt, they'll give some bluff looks and then kind of drop out of it. But quarters in the red zone, more man coverage in between the 20s.
Yeah, I think predominantly they've been a zone defense this year. Obviously, if you get them in makeable third down situations, they'll play man, but they most ideally would like to get you in 3rd and 7 or longer and just sit back in zone and make you throw up underneath it, then tackle the catch that way.
Yeah, I wonder how these get charted sometimes. I mean, I believe most of these numbers are true and accurate, but whenever how do they define match coverage? How does that get charted in these data pools that we get each week the coverage rates for each NFL team? Like, how do you calculate when the Bills are running a 4-over-3 box call against Trips bunch in the red zone? Like, how does that get classified? I would love to kind of know some of the factors that get made into how these. Is this even like who is who pulls these numbers? Is somebody charting it individually? Is this like using the dots?
I think
to
a lot
do
of
it?
them, it depends. It's obviously subjective in a lot of different areas there, but I think most of them come from Sports Info Solutions, charts, and True Media charting from what I'm seeing.
But I'm asking the question of like who delivers the mailman's mail like that?
Yeah.
Who charts the charting? And I'm just curious on some of the background on how the sausage gets made. But yeah, I mean, the numbers certainly say what is it? Cover 3, I think, is the predominant coverage the Buffalo runs throughout the season. But I think certainly in some of those big God habit moments, you're seeing more of that man coverage and then seeing quarters in that situational red zone football.
And they'll run cover 6 as well too. They run a pretty hefty, I think, selection of cover 6. I think I've seen.
Yeah. So they'll do some stuff against 2-by-1 formations there. Any other thoughts here on the Bills' defense, Dave?
No, you just you better be able to run against them.
And then special teams. I know Josh did the deep dive. They've had punter roulette, but I think they found more stability there with Wishnowski once he's back healthy. I think the return game has had some effectiveness this year. Let me try to find the numbers.
Right. That Davis, Davis has had some success there, I think.
He just housed one, 2 weeks ago, I think, was that last week against Houston that he ran one back?
Might have been.
Let me double check here. Ray Davis. Yeah, that was against Houston, 97-yard kick return, I think right before the end of the half. And so he's certainly a big-time threat there. Punt return, a little bit less so. But yeah, the kick return game, the kick coverage game must be really good.
Yeah, I think they're last in the NFL in punt return average of 5.2 yards, 32nd in the league. However, kickoff, and here's hoping the Steelers have to kick off a lot in this game. 28.6 yards per kickoff, ranked 4th in the NFL there. And if you flip over to the other side of the football when it comes to Buffalo and covering punts, they've allowed 8.2 yards per return, 10th in the NFL, and kickoffs 26.2, 17th in the NFL there. So, look, that's another aspect of this game as well too that I think can be, and we saw it a couple of years ago against Buffalo. Wasn't there like a block? Didn't Killebrew block a punt against them?
Yeah, that was fourth quarter turning point.
Yeah.
And didn't they have a run back in that game? Who was that? Steven Sims? Who was that against? Did Steven Sims have a big run back to open up a half? Was that? I think it's Tampa.
I remember them being 2 big turning points in that game that the Steelers won. I think it was a 4th down stop by Minka or something in that game, short of the change, if memory serves me. And I think the block punt, obviously, those were 2 big plays. And obviously coming off of a game where Corliss Waitman, didn't punt the ball overly well. What's the weather going to be like in this one? How is that going to impact this game?
Yeah, it's going to be cold. I think some rain or snow mix in the morning, but I think it's going to taper off by kickoff. So the weather shouldn't impact it more than it otherwise would for a late November game. Pittsburgh this year, Dave, in the kick return game after that miserable showing against Chicago, now 30th in kick return average. They were dead last year. So talk about teams that have not done well under the new dynamic kickoff. The coverage teams have been good. The return teams, though, have been really disappointing. Let's play a quick trivia game here, Dave. In that 21 opener against Buffalo where Killebrew had the block punt, who recovered the ball for a touchdown? That was a real turning point of that game. What Steeler had the touchdown off the Killebrew block punt?
I want to say Matakevich, but I'm not sure.
I think he was in the area. It wasn't him, though. Was he? He was still a Steeler then before he went to Buffalo. It was UG3, Ulysses Gilbert III, which I did not even remember until I looked up the box score. I thought it was like I don't know, Chicolo or something, which might not even be accurate of him being on the team. But yeah, UG3 had that recovery.
Okay.
There's a name you probably haven't heard in a hot minute. So,
And wasn't there a key fourth down stop in that game?
I'm
Are you
sure
looking
there
at it?
was. Buffalo was 1 of 3 on fourth down. I don't know when they went for it. I'm sure they went for it late, trying to play catch up. They had a 4th and 8 throw to Gabe Davis. To Cam Sutton apparently broke up, but I have no good memory of exactly what happened then. Actually, they ran is there a fake punt? I'm looking at a 4th and 1. Matt Breida, left tackle for -7. What happened? Wasn't something weird happen on that play? It was 7 yards on 4th and 1.
I'm drawing a blank.
I don't know. Someone else can go look up the highlights. But Pittsburgh has beaten Buffalo before, but Buffalo certainly bested Pittsburgh more often than not in the Josh Allen era. So make our picks for that game in a moment. But before that, Dave, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
That's right, Alex. We're glad to have, obviously, MyBookie.ag back sponsoring the Friday podcast where we do all of our picks against the spread. And just a little highlight here, the 3 games yesterday. Oh, I got let's see, which way did we go in those different games there? Let's kind of recap real quick to see where we stand on
I think I
those
went
games.
2-1 yesterday. I had Lions, Cowboys, and Bengals.
All right. I think I had Packers, Chiefs, and Ravens covering, and I only won the first one there. So I'm 1-2 at this point. You're 2-1 heading into the rest of the games of the weekend. Now, when it comes to MyBookie.ag, man, teams are already hanging 40 points or more on the board this year, and the overs are printing right and left. MyBookie is where my boys are cashing in on every one of them. They have game lines, player props, same game parlays, whatever you're riding, MyBookie has it to offer for you to bet on. New players, if you're new to MyBookie.ag, you can use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code TERRIBLE at sign up. And in doing so, you can get started with the bet back bonus that they have. What does that mean? That means your first bet up to $500 is fully covered. If it misses, just use the bet back token and it keeps you in the game so you can reload and fire another shot. Whether you're building your bankroll or looking to hit the lotto with money bag feature that MyBookie has, you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And obviously, not only do they have NFL lines, they have the college lines, they have hockey lines, they have NBA, college basketball, you name it. MyBookie has it to offer for you here. So have fun, get in the game, and specifically if you're new to MyBookie, use our promo code TERRIBLE at sign up. That way you can take advantage of the bet back bonus where you can get your first bet up to $500 fully cover if it misses, which obviously with our listeners, I'm sure there's not a lot of misses within there. All right, let's get into the remaining games of the week. Let me hit refresh real quick here to get the most up-to-date lines. We've got a game coming up on Black Friday with the Chicago Bears at the Philadelphia Eagles. First and foremost, let me tell you something, an unpopular take I have. I think if you play on Thanksgiving, you should have to wear your most traditional home or away uniform. How do you feel about that take?
I like it. I don't have a lot of uniform hot takes overall, but I dig it. You know what I do hate? I hate the Black Friday game. Disgusting. But playing a game on Friday, 3 p.m. Terrible. But with that said, what is the line here for this Bears-Eagles game?
Well, I damn sure going to watch it. And the Eagles are favored by 7 points here. That Eagles defense against, we'll see what Caleb and that offense can do this week here. The Eagles are 7-point home favorites on Black Friday against the Chicago Bears. What say you?
It's a really big line, and the Bears, credit to them, and they played a whale of a game against Pittsburgh last week, but I think you're going to have a tougher defensive coordinator, tougher defensive scheme with what Vic Fangio brings to the table, so I will take the Eagles.
I will take the Eagles as well, too. It's going to be tough for the Bears on this short week against this defense here. This could be a very unappetizing Black Friday game. I expect the Eagles really to blow them out there. All right, the Rams, who have been red on fire hot. Are they the best team in the NFC right now? You could certainly make an argument for that. They go on the road to play the Carolina Panthers. The Rams are 10.5-point road favorites against the Panthers.
Best team in the NFL, probably Super Bowl favorite. I don't know, is there a better case you can make for a team right now than the LA Rams. I struggle to find someone else that I would put ahead of them as we sit here today. A big line on the road. Carolina's been scrappy. They've been very hot and cold. Oh, man, this one's tough. I'll take the Rams.
I'll take the Rams, cover that 10.5 points as well, too. 49ers on the road against the Cleveland Browns. That Browns defense, man, Myles Garrett, he's on pace to break the sack record and all. It seems like he gets a bad day for him. It's like 3 sacks now at this point. Here, Shadur Sanders obviously going to make his second start in this game. A 49ers defense that's banged up, but they've gotten pieces back on offense. If they can keep Brock Purdy from turning the football over, they'd be in a lot better shape here. Christian McCaffrey's having a Christian McCaffrey season. Kind of a weird game here, and it's in Cleveland as well, too. 49ers, 4.5-point road favorites against the Browns.
And this one's going to be tight on the road. Going out east for San Francisco. I'll take the Niners.
I'll take the Niners laying the 4.5 points with you as well, too. The Arizona Cardinals on the road against the Buccaneers. Is Baker going to play in this one?
It seems pretty up in the air. He's a tough guy. I'm gonna guess he does, but this thing seems to be really questionable.
All right, Buccaneers 3-point home favorites against the Cardinals.
Give me the Bucs.
I'll take the Cardinals to upset them straight up here.
All right, I like it.
Give me a +3 on that. In a game, going to be interesting one in the AFC South. The Houston Texans coming off a big win against the Bills. They have a little bit extra time to prepare against the Indianapolis Colts, and Daniel Jones is dealing with something like a fibula or something like that doesn't have him right now. What I mean is he's not right. I think they're going to have him play in this game with Daniel Jones. But the Colts are 3.5-point home favorites against the Texans here. What say you?
This is a really good game. The Texans defense is incredible. I don't want to discount the Colts, though. I've probably gone against them too much this year. This one's really tough. There's a lot of good games. There's a lot of tough picks here. My gut's saying the Colts. I'll take the Colts.
I'll take the Texans to win this outright. Give me those 3.5 points on the road against the Colts here. Jaguars on the road against Tennessee. Jaguars 6-point road favorites against the Titans.
So I'm picking all these road favorites. I feel like someone's going to not follow through. Give me the Titans to cover.
I'll take the Jaguars lay to 6 there. The Falcons on the road against the Jets. Kirk Cousins versus
Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor. Falcons 2.5-point road favorites against the Jets.
Can they stop Bijan Robinson? Will Atlanta just run the ball all day? Probably. Where's this one at? Is this one
It's in East Rutherford. Yeah. Falcons 2.5-point home road favorites.
Give me the Jets.
I'll take the Falcons. I'll take all these road teams laying the points here. Saints on the road against the Dolphins. Dolphins still trying to hang around. Dolphins are 5.5-point home favorites against the Saints.
They're in that in the hunt graphic. Cleveland got put in the in the hunt graphic, which feels charitable, but I'm sure Browns fans will appreciate that. Give me the Dolphins.
I'll take the Dolphins at home, lay to 5.5. Minnesota on the road against the Seahawks. Seahawks 12-point home favorites.
Against Max Brosmer getting his first NFL start. Always interested how these first starts go. Usually bad, but sometimes quarterbacks surprise. 12-point line at home? Ah, man, it's a big line. I don't know. I really don't know which way to go on this one. I'll be boring and safe and say Seattle.
I'll take Seattle late at 12 points at
Actually,
home.
Wait, give me a minute. I took Seattle last week against Tennessee, and Tennessee scored some garbage stuff late. I'm going the other way. Give me Minnesota.
All right, I'll give you Minnesota. I'll take the Seahawks -12. Raiders on the road against the Chargers. Chargers 9.5-point home favorites against the Raiders.
Give me the Raiders. Chip Kelly out, probably the best move they could make. Genty's going to get the ball more and more creatively, more in the pass game. Raiders hang around, even though it's a really tough year. Divisional game, too big of a line. Give me the Raiders.
I'll take the Chargers late at 9.5 at home. How about the Broncos at the Washington Commanders? The Broncos 5.5-point road favorites against the Commanders.
You know what's funny about the Raiders, too? The interim OC's Greg Olsen for the third time. How many times can you just rehire a guy to run your offense? It's just very strange. For this game, I'll take the Broncos.
I'll take the Broncos late at 5.5. The New York Football Giants on the road against the Patriots. The Patriots 7-point home favorites against the Giants.
Jackson Dart should play in this one. Giants have done some really funky stuff. They're certainly, still fighting hard. I don't know. Give me the Patriots.
I'll take the Patriots late of 7 points there. And I think that was the Monday night game. So that circles us back to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 4:25 p.m. on Sunday, hosting the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, 3-point road favorites right now. This thing, I think, bounced between like 3 and 4 points there. And it's 3 points on my bookie right now. Bills favored. What say you?
All I hear this week is the season's over. Fire everybody, move the team to Albuquerque. Doesn't matter the Ravens lost. Who cares? Shut up, Alex. And I get all the pain points for Pittsburgh this year. They have been such an inconsistent, such a hot and cold team. Obviously very cold in a lot of ways against the Bears last week. But when you're a hot and cold team, it means sometimes you're cold, but sometimes you're hot.
Pittsburgh that's usually what it means.
Usually what it means. High-level analysis here. And Pittsburgh has oscillated between wins and losses for 4 straight weeks now. Pittsburgh wins this one. They always get back in that corner and rise above. They come out hot this game at home. Josh Allen struggled on the road. The run game will be strong. The pass game will find some ways to make some plays downfield. The defense will create turnovers against the Bills team that has turned the ball over a ton. So this is the Jekyll and Hyde. I don't know which one's Jekyll and which one's Hyde, which one's good or bad. And I don't get the reference enough to explain it, but Pittsburgh, they'll find a way to be hot this week. They get the win 24-23. Very close game, but a win is a win and a big one at that.
All right. I'm not as confident as you are. I worry about Aaron Rodgers being right in this one. I worry about the ability to get the explosive plays. I worry about them running the football effectively on a team that they should be able to run the football on. They're gonna have to win me back over again. And look, I mean, there's a lot of talk right now. Mike Tomlin, yada yada. And look, if you lose this game and then you turn around and lose to the Baltimore Ravens next week, I mean, the season's effectively over. A lot of people obviously saying, well, it doesn't matter now. The season is over with. But the Steelers are going to have to convince me that they can come out and beat a team that still, offensive problems aside, the Buffalo Bills can move the football at times. And I worry about Josh Allen taking off with the football in this one. All that be said, and look, Mike Tomlin's got a pretty good record as I think 3 or point or more home underdogs in the NFL over time there, but I think he gives one back in this one. I have the Bills covering by 6 points here. So I have this 27-21 Buffalo.
All right, there you go. So let's play the game, and we'll answer it just in our specific opposite since we picked it differently. If Pittsburgh wins this game, Dave, if you're wrong, how does Pittsburgh win this game?
Pittsburgh wins this game. They're going to need a big special teams play or two. So they're going to need like a block punt to create either a touchdown or a very short field in this game. Maybe even two big special teams plays in this one. They're going to have to run the football extremely well. They're going to have to stay out of the third down and long situations, and we're going to have to talk about probably what'd you say? Actual yak. They're going to have a yak. Their yak is going to have to be more than 120 yards in this one.
All right, I like it. Y.A. Black was so close to blocking a field goal last week. He actually was on tape. You could see him on the All-22 kind of be a little frustrated, like, all right, I came so close. And they've not blocked. A couple of years ago, last year even, they were blocking a bunch of field goals, and they have not gotten their hands on one this year, despite having big guys like Y.A. Darnell Washington's on the punt block or the field goal block team. So hopefully it'd be great to get one in this game. If Pittsburgh loses this game, to answer the question posed to myself, it just comes out of the quarterback play. And it's Josh Allen as an elite guy, and elite guys make elite plays. And those are the differences in tight games with teams with similar situations, kind of hot and cold, trying to find your footing and not necessarily meeting expectations. And when you have Josh Allen and one team doesn't, that often is the difference maker. So that would be the reason why Pittsburgh loses. Again, very highbrow analysis I'm bringing here, but obvious answer.
Look, the Bills are going to have to help in their own loss here and help beat themselves. A lot of penalties in this game. They're going to have to turn the football over a couple of times somehow, some way. So I think we're talking about the Bills really shooting themselves in the foot a lot, and then the Steelers potentially taking advantage of such things if the Steelers are going to look. Not having the 2 tackles for Buffalo would obviously be huge in this. Them having kind of a makeshift receiver group on the fly here is a big point in this as well too. But if they can't get to Josh Allen and get him on the ground, and they can't force Josh Allen into turning the football over, it could be for a long day.
Yeah, that is the thing. Even if your pass rushers beat the backup tackles, that's only half the battle. You still got to get Josh Allen down, which is a tall task.
Yeah, I would imagine that they just they're talking don't turn the football over, don't have the sacks, get the ball out quick, Josh, and we'll just long game the Steelers here.
Yeah, especially when you have such a exaggerated performance like the 3 turnovers and 8 sacks against Houston. You go in there and that's the first thing you got to go fix, and you really put emphasis on that to try to make sure those things aren't replicated. But again, Pittsburgh, their pass rush can still be a threat, and I think they'll play the run okay. James Cook is certainly a talented back, but I think they'll still hold up against the run, and if they can do that, they may be in some advantageous situations.
Look, this is a more beatable Bills team that we've seen over the last several years, right?
Yeah, it's funny. We've talked with Matt, that maybe this is the year Buffalo can get over the hump because the Chiefs aren't there. But man, if Buffalo could be the Bills of last year, this year, they'd be the clear favorites. Like they would have a clear walk-in path to the Super Bowl. And so it's funny that, this is the year where it's there for the taking and the Bills are not playing up to par. But if they can avoid the Chiefs, it's like when the Steelers made their Super Bowl runs, they avoided Tom Brady, did not play the Patriots in their 05 and 08 Super Bowl runs. So that's kind of the same thing with the Bills. Get in the playoffs, you don't got to play the Chiefs, and you got a real chance.
All right, here's the question I want to ask you here. We know Derek Harmon's not going to play in this game. Let's assume Joey Porter Jr. does play in this game. Based on the personnel that you expect the Steelers to have going into this game, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being excellent, how would you rate the personnel? Just the personnel across the board. How would you rate the personnel on a scale of 1 to 10 without Derek Harmon, but with Joey Porter?
So just how good the group is, just from an individual personnel standpoint.
From an individual collective standpoint, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is the personnel on defense?
7.
Okay. How would you rank them if they had Derek Harmon?
A little bit better. It's not transformative, but 7.5 or so.
All right. How would you rate, same scale, the coaching of that said unit?
Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean,
the ability to scheme. They're a talented team individually, kind of collectively on the defensive side of football, right? I mean,
they better be with all the investments in it.
Talented team. So, and we get the question asked all the time, coaching. How would you rate the coaching on a defensive side of football?
There's such a long conversation to be had about scheme. There's so much nuance there, and it gets lost even in our conversation sometimes because there's just so much to go into depending on a particular game or a particular play. So it's harder to give that answer. Obviously, it's easy to see the players in the field and strength and speed and the physical traits that are more obvious. But the coaching obviously has been lacking, and I thought they had a really bad game plan against Chicago. So to give an answer, to try to put a number on what's happened this year, at least, it's probably more like a 3, a 4, if that.
Okay. Yeah. So if schemed up and coached right, this can be a good defense.
Yeah. For sure.
Better than average.
You've seen
better than what they've been.
And you've seen them have good scheme. The Bengals game, that rematch was a great scheme. They did a great job in that game. So, I mean, you've seen this team in moments, and they've done a lot of different things. There's been some wrinkles. I mean, they're certainly, the wheels are turning. Sometimes, though, they're either turning in the wrong direction or, I'm losing the analogy here, but you've gotten a lot of frustrating moments.
All right. Okay. Shall we knock off a couple emails real quick here?
Yeah, I know we're
2 hours.
along here like our Friday shows go with the guest podcast host. But let's get some emails and close out today's show.
Do you think the Bills will? How do you think the mix of the fan base? Bills fans generally, especially this close, usually travel very very well, and Steelers fans, I imagine some are selling their tickets right now. Is there going to be some noticeable slant to the Bills fans in this one?
What's that website that projects crowd mix? I forget the site, and they usually do a pretty spot on job of
SeatGeek or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, there's some site that does that, but I'm sure it'll be a healthy Bills crowd. Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Beth Weaver's in here. Crazy scenario, purely hypothetical, but neither the Steelers fan base nor the Ravens fan base are happy with their coaches. Imagine the teams doing a head coach direct swap. Which team over the next 5 years would do better and why? So, in other words, if Harbaugh coached the Steelers and Tomlin coached the Ravens over the next 5 years, who would do better? And why? Well, the Steelers don't have a franchise quarterback right now, and the Ravens do, even though Lamar Jackson did not look good at all in that game against the Bengals.
No, he didn't. Yeah, it's an interesting question. They are kind of in similar positions. I think there should be more scrutiny. Well, there's scrutiny for both for this, but since Harbaugh has a franchise quarterback, the expectations are higher, and he's had similar results. He's won a couple playoff games, but you would expect that with a guy like Lamar Jackson. Tomlin has not had that in recent years. Now he gets blamed because he has not found that guy, and part of your job as a head coach is finding a franchise quarterback and developing one, and Tomlin's not done so in his resume because he inherited Ben. But to answer that question, it'd probably be pretty similar situations. Who is the better head coach straight up, Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh?
I'd lean Harbaugh right now.
Any reason for that? It's close, I know.
I just think Harbaugh's just pound for pound the better head coach right now.
I still might lean Tomlin, but it's very close, and I think there's certainly a lot of frustrations with both teams not getting over their respective humps.
Let's see. Michael Moore writes in, I'm sure you've already done some of this research, but I've been playing around with StatHead and wanted to share what I found. Pittsburgh on 2nd and 10, 40% run rate, 6th highest in the NFL. The league average is 30.9%. 2024 Steelers, 44.4% on 2nd and 10 run rate. 2nd in the NFL. Average run game, 2.6 yards. 32nd in the NFL. Average pass gain, 6.3 yards. 12th in the NFL. 2nd and 10. Let's see. I don't know why he's got these. I don't know what the point is he's trying to make here. 2nd and 10 plus 32.9% run rate, 9th highest league average. All right, he's got all these stats in here. Not only is this team maddeningly inconsistent on running on 2nd and long, but they're not even good at it, and it's nothing new. They actually did it even more in 2024. No question for me, just sharing in your frustrations. He says, I'm not a fire Tomlin guy, but boy, is it tempting each time that I watch these guys commit to punting on 2nd down, essentially.
Yeah, I wrote about that. I imagine that might be in response to what we talked about. I wrote about with the Arthur Smith 2nd and 10 runs in the Chicago game, and that is frustrating, and there's no question about that. Maybe last year was a little more forgivable because you had Fields for the first half of the season, maybe did some either scrambles that might get reflected as runs or some design quarterback run game that, maybe was a little more potent. But yeah, good offenses don't run the ball in 2nd and long. You put yourself in third and long and stretches your offense a whole lot more. So I hear the complaint, and I generally share it.
All right, Danielle from Brisbane, Australia, back in here again. Good day, Dave and Alex. My question is about the current quarterback landscape. Not that so many quarterbacks who have been on other teams have found success, such as Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. Do you reckon it is actually necessary to draft a quarterback high in the first round? Could it be a better strategy to acquire a veteran who you can develop and get the most out of? This approach could also be beneficial for comp pick value. Example, the situations with Russ and Fields. Well, the problem is with Russ and Fields. So what kind of comp pick is this team headed for with or value with Russ and Fields right now? Look, and everybody thinks, look, the season's not over for Daniel Jones yet, right? And he's dealing, dude. They've got a great run game over there with the Colts, and they've obviously gone all in with Sauce and all like that. How much what does it mean for Daniel Jones and the Colts if they get into the playoffs and are one and done, and Geno Smith would have read that, that just has not, I realize the analogy of him going to Seattle and the situation with him, but I mean, how many times can you go to the well and try to take a cast off and say, well, we can either get some final good years out of him, or we can make him the next Daniel Jones or who's the
Geno Smith or Sam Darnold,
yeah,
Baker
Sam
Mayfield.
Darnold, but I get it. I mean, there's always exceptions to the rule, but the Steelers don't seem to do well with cast-offs and getting either the last squeeze of the juice out of them or turn them around,
I mean, I still contend they did a good job with Fields, better than what the Bears ever did and better what the Jets have done. They not to the level of Baker or, the names you mentioned, but they did a good job. But still, Pittsburgh is not the team to develop that quarterback. They're not Kyle Shanahan or Kevin O'Connell or Shane Steichen, where they can really kind of that offensive guru that can take that quarterback and get him in the right system to really make that big leap the way that, Daniel Jones and others have. So I still think generally, even putting the coaching staff aside, just in a vacuum, the first round is the way to go. Most of the high-end teams in the NFL still have the homegrown first-round picks, and that's historically how it's worked. But even, looking at the cast-off element, the coaching staff probably just isn't there to really do it great. I mean, Arthur Smith has worked well with quarterbacks, but he's still probably not on that level of the Shanahans or the O'Connells. That's really like the quarterback whisperer to really make that guy have a complete 180 career turnaround.
Real quick, going back to the Bills Steelers game, they got to get the tight ends involved in this passing game more, right? I mean, they absolutely have got to get, especially against a team like Buffalo. We've got to see them lean into Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith in addition to Darnell Washington, right?
And something down the field, man. Those guys have just caught some short passes, and Freiermuth has not been used enough. And by the way, the Bills just ruling out a handful of players, according to Sean McDermott, Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Terrell Bernard, and Curtis Samuel will not play. That's according to Matt Perino, who you just heard a short time ago. So confirmed, Bills without both starting tackles in this game.
Yeah, they won't have Curtis Samuel, so we kind of expected that. Bernard, we kind of expected that. We were wondering about both their tackles. So, look, we've seen it in the past. Those opposing offensive lines be down players, and the Steelers not appropriately being able to take care of it. But that ball is going to come out quick from Josh Allen, I'm telling you, on Sunday, and we're probably going to see the extra offensive lineman on there and them try to run. You got to stop it all starts with stopping the run. If they can stop the run, they'll have a prayer in this one.
You got it, for sure.
All right, I got through some questions there. We hung around long enough to find out who's in and out for the Buffalo Bills. So a little bonus there to close this thing out. One of us will be right, barring a tie. One of us will be right, one of us will be wrong when it comes to the game predictions here. I'm hoping Alex is the one right, because I'd much rather talk about an AFC North leading Pittsburgh Steelers with a big game against the Baltimore Ravens coming in Week 14. So whatever happens on Sunday, you can count on us talking about it on Monday. Shout out again and thank you to Matt Perino for joining us today. And let's see. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. Happy Thanksgiving once again to everybody. Happy Black Friday. Appreciate everybody listening to the show. And as I always like to say, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.